So, a few years ago, I began to have thoughts I didn't like, thoughts that maybe I didn't want to practice law anymore. I didn't like those thoughts because, well, they were scary, but also because I'd worked so hard to get there, worked so hard to get into law school, in law school, and then I'd established myself after 15 years of practice of law. And after all that and being established, the thought of moving on was definitely scary. And I share this with you because I'm sure there's a lot of you, not really related to the practice of law, that maybe aren't happy with what they're doing and want to move on, want to change, want to go in a new direction in their lives. But they feel that fear that I felt years ago. Well, how exactly I sorted through that fear and got to the point where I was willing to move on, more than willing to move on, is kind of a long story. But one way that I can summarize it here so we're not spending the next hour together is that I realized that who I was when I wanted to be a lawyer was not who I was then. You see, when I wanted to be a lawyer, I was in my 20s, young, full of zeal, and that is what I wanted to do. I was single. Those other considerations that I had in my life 20 years later weren't there. You see, 20 years later, I was married, was older, heavier, all those things, right? With adult responsibilities. I was a different person. And I wasn't going to let what I wanted to be in my 20s dictate how I needed to live the rest of my life. But of course, if you've read any of my books, you know I took a leap back then and it worked out. But of course, I also felt the same way, like I wanted to make that same leap. But it was scarier. As I was in my 40s, I was established. It wasn't just me and my Volkswagen Beetle that I had to worry about. You get a mortgage, responsibilities, bills to pay, cable costs, way too much money, right? All those sort of things. But I did it. Now, I'm not saying that it was smooth sailing. Not at all. And it's still not. The waters are still choppy. But at the same time, the course I'm charting is my own. I'm not just running out the clock until I retire, like I might have been had I continued practicing law. Instead, I'm living life with a new meaning and a new purpose. And while right now that might not be objectively successful, it's successful to me because I love what I'm doing and I have a meaning and purpose that I might not have had if I hung on to who I was. So who are you? Are you different than when you began charting the course that you're on? Are you a person who wants to stay in that course and will let fear guide them? I hope not. Because really, there's nothing more important to life, at least what I've learned over the past few years, than joy. And I wish you nothing but joy.